The hospital corridor smelled of disinfectant and fear. 17-year-old Lily Martinez sat in the hard plastic chair outside the emergency room, her hands shaking as she clutched her phone. The screen showed 23 missed calls from him, Derek, her stepfather. Each notification made her stomach twist tighter. She pulled her sweater sleeve down to cover the bruises on her wrist, purple and yellow marks that told a story she'd been too afraid to speak aloud. The nurse had seen them when checking her blood pressure. The questions had started then, gentle but insistent. How did this happen, sweetie? Lily had lied, said she fell. But the nurse's eyes had lingered too long on the finger-shaped marks, on the way Lily flinched when anyone moved too quickly near her. Now she waited for her mother to arrive, though she knew what would happen. Mom would take Derek's side. She always did. Ever since Dad died 3 years ago in that factory accident, Mom had changed. She'd married Derek within a year, desperate for stability, for someone to help with bills and keep the house. She'd stopped seeing what was right in front of her. Lily's phone buzzed again. Another text from Derek. "Where are you? Come home now." Her hands trembled as she turned the phone face down. She was here because of gym class, because she'd collapsed during volleyball. Dehydration, the doctor said. Not eating enough. Stress. What he didn't know was that she'd stopped eating at home because dinner meant sitting across from Derek, enduring his comments about her weight, her grades, her friends. Meals had become psychological warfare, and skipping them was easier than facing him. The emergency room door slid open, and Lily looked up, expecting her mother. Instead, a man walked in who made her breath catch. He was tall and broad-shouldered, probably in his 50s, with a salt and pepper beard and arms covered in tattoos. He wore a leather vest over a black t-shirt, and across the back of the vest in bold letters, Steel Wolves MC. A biker, a member of the motorcycle club that operated out of the industrial district near the docks. Lily had heard stories about the Steel Wolves. Some people said they were dangerous criminals. Others claimed they were protectors of the neighborhood. She'd never known which to believe. The man approached the reception desk, his boots heavy on the linoleum floor. "I'm here about my nephew, Tommy Reeves. Came in about an hour ago. Motorcycle accident." The receptionist checked her computer and pointed down the hall. As the biker turned to leave, his eyes landed on Lily. For just a moment, their gazes met, and something in his expression shifted. He'd noticed her split lip, the one she'd tried to cover with her hair. He'd seen the fear in her eyes. He walked past, but slowly, like he was taking inventory of everything wrong with the picture she presented. Then he disappeared through a doorway marked Trauma Bay. Lily exhaled, not realizing she'd been holding her breath. She checked her phone again. Mom had texted, "On my way. Derek is very upset. You shouldn't have left without telling us." The blame was already starting. Lily's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. 20 minutes later, the biker emerged from the Trauma Bay, his face tight with worry but relieved. He pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking in low tones about his nephew being stable, about broken bones that would heal. As he ended the call, Lily's mother rushed through the emergency room doors. Behind her, moving with false concern, was Derek. Lily's entire body went rigid. Derek smiled at the receptionist, played the worried stepfather perfectly. He wore his work clothes, the button-down shirt and khakis that made him look respectable normal. No one would guess what he was capable of behind closed doors. "Lily, honey," her mother said, rushing over. "What happened? Are you okay?" Before Lily could answer, Derek was there, his hand landing on her shoulder with just enough pressure to hurt. To anyone watching, it looked like comfort. Lily knew better. "You scared us half to death," Derek said, his voice warm for the audience around them. But his fingers dug into her shoulder blade, a hidden punishment. "Running off like that without telling anyone where you were going." "I didn't run off," Lily said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I collapsed in gym class. The school called an ambulance." "Well, you must have done something to cause it," Derek said, his smile never wavering. "Probably staying up all night on that phone of yours instead of sleeping like I told you." The biker was still there, standing near the vending machines. Lily saw him watching their interaction, his expression growing darker with each passing second. "Let's get you home," Derek said, pulling Lily to her feet. His grip was iron-hard, painful. "We need to have a serious talk about your behavior lately." Those words sent ice through Lily's veins. She knew what serious talks meant. It meant being cornered in her room, mean being told she was worthless, stupid, a burden. Sometimes it meant worse. "Actually," a deep voice interrupted, "the doctor hasn't discharged her yet." They all turned. The biker stood a few feet away, his arms crossed over his chest. Up close, he was even more intimidating, easily 6'3", built like someone who'd spent years in hard physical labor. "I'm sorry," Derek said, his tone polite, but with an edge. "This is a family matter." "Is it?" The biker's eyes moved to Lily, then to Derek's hand still gripping her shoulder. "Because from where I'm standing, that young lady looks terrified of you." "How dare you?" Lily's mother said, finding her voice. "You don't know anything about our family." "I know what I see," the biker said calmly. "And I see a scared kid with bruises that don't come from falling down." The corridor had gone quiet. Other people were watching now, nurses, visitors, another patient in a wheelchair. Derek's face flushed red, but he maintained his composure. "Those bruises are from sports," Derek said smoothly. "She plays volleyball, gets knocked around. Right, Lily?" All eyes turned to her. This was her moment to speak, to tell the truth. But fear locked the words in her throat. If she said something now, here, what would happen when they got home? What would Derek do when there were no witnesses? The silence stretched. Then the biker did something unexpected. He pulled out his phone and made a call, his eyes never leaving Derek's face. "Yeah, it's Marcus," he said into the phone. "I'm at County General Hospital, emergency room. I need you to send everyone. We got a situation." He paused, listening. "Yeah, everyone. Right now." "Who are you calling?" Derek demanded, his composure starting to crack. "You have no right." "I'm calling my brothers," Marcus said, ending the call. "The Steel Wolves take care of our community. And when we see a kid in danger, we handle it." Lily's mother grabbed her husband's arm. "Derek, maybe we should just—" "We're not going anywhere," Derek said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "This is harassment. I'll call the police." "Please do," Marcus said. "Save me the trouble." Over the next 10 minutes, the emergency room entrance became a staging ground. One by one, motorcycles pulled up outside, their distinctive engines rumbling like thunder. Bikers began filing in, all wearing the Steel Wolves colors, all moving with purpose. They didn't threaten. They didn't raise their voices. They simply positioned themselves throughout the waiting area, a silent wall of leather and steel between Lily and her stepfather. An older biker with a gray ponytail and a weathered face approached Marcus. "What's the situation, brother?" Marcus explained in low tones, gesturing to Lily, to her visible injuries. The older biker's jaw tightened, and he nodded slowly. "Lily," he said gently, approaching her. "My name is Raymond Torres. I'm the president of the Steel Wolves. Will you talk with me for a minute?" Lily looked at her mother, who seemed frozen in shock. She looked at Derek, whose confident mask had finally crumbled into barely contained rage. Then she looked at Raymond, at the kindness in his weathered face, and something inside her broke. "Yes," she whispered. Raymond led her to a quiet corner, away from Derek and her mother. Two female bikers, women with kind eyes and protective stances, came to stand nearby, creating a barrier. "You're safe now," Raymond said quietly. "Whatever you need to tell me, whatever's happening, you're safe. We won't let anyone hurt you." And finally, after years of silence, after countless nights of fear, Lily spoke. The words came tumbling out in broken sentences and half-finished thoughts, but they came. She told him everything, about the escalating abuse, the threats, the way Derek had isolated her from her friends, the times he'd hurt her and blamed her for it afterward. As she spoke, hospital security arrived, followed shortly by police officers. The Steel Wolves had already called them, reporting suspected child abuse. The social worker on duty was summoned. Suddenly, the wheels of official intervention were turning, and there was no stopping them. Derek tried to leave, but found his path blocked by a wall of bikers. Not threatening, just standing there, making it clear he wasn't going anywhere until the police were finished. Lily watched from her corner as Derek was questioned, as his smooth explanations fell apart under scrutiny. She watched her mother cry and apologize, claiming she didn't know how bad it had gotten. Part of Lily believed her. Part of her would never forgive her for not seeing. The police took photographs of her injuries. The social worker asked gentle questions and took careful notes. And through it all, the steel wolves remained, a protective presence that asked for nothing in return. Hours later, as evening turned to night, Lily found herself in a different hospital room, not as a patient, but in a meeting with social services. Emergency custody had been granted to the state, pending investigation. She wouldn't be going home, at least not tonight. Maybe not ever. Raymond sat with her, along with a woman named Jessica, who worked with a local organization helping abuse victims. They explained her options, talked about foster care and legal proceedings, about therapy and support groups. Why are you doing this? Lily finally asked Raymond, the question that had been burning inside her. You don't know me. Why would you get involved? Raymond was quiet for a moment, his calloused hands folded in front of him. My daughter was your age when she died, he said finally. Car accident, drunk driver. But before that, in middle school, she had a friend who was being hurt at home. My Rosie came to me, told me what was happening. He looked at Lily with eyes that held old pain. I called it in, got the authorities involved, made sure that girl got help. She thanked me years later, said I saved her life. And when Rosie died, that girl spoke at her funeral, told everyone what kind of person my daughter was, how she taught her that it was okay to ask for help. Raymond's voice grew thick with emotion. So when I see a kid in trouble, I think of Rosie. I think of the person she was trying to be. And I honor her memory by doing what she would have done. Stand up, speak out, protect the vulnerable. Lily felt tears running down her face, the first real tears she'd allowed herself in months. Raymond handed her a tissue, patient and kind. What happens now? She asked. Now you heal, Jessica said. It won't be easy or quick. You'll have court dates and interviews, therapy sessions, and tough conversations. But you won't face any of it alone. The Steel Wolves have a program, Raymond added. We work with social services, provide mentorship and support for at-risk youth. We help kids like you find their footing, discover they're stronger than they know. Over the following weeks, Lily's life transformed in ways she'd never imagined. She was placed in a foster home with a couple named the Hendersons, who had experience with trauma survivors and treated her with patience and respect. Derek was arrested and charged with multiple counts of assault and child endangerment. Her mother entered counseling, and supervised visits were arranged, though Lily wasn't sure she wanted them. The Steel Wolves became unexpected constants in her life. Marcus checked in regularly, taking her and the Hendersons out for meals, making sure she had what she needed. Other club members offered their various skills. One helped her catch up on schoolwork she'd missed. Another taught her basic motorcycle maintenance as a form of therapy, giving her hands something to do when the memories got too loud. 3 months after that night in the hospital, Lily attended her first Steel Wolves community event. The club was hosting a fundraiser for their youth program, trying to raise money to expand their outreach. Lily had volunteered to help set up, partly out of gratitude, partly because she'd come to see these rough-looking bikers as family. As she hung decorations in the community center they'd rented, Raymond approached with a young woman Lily hadn't seen before. The woman was in her late 20s, with warm brown eyes and a confident smile. Lily, I want you to meet someone, Raymond said. This is Carla Mendez. She's the girl I told you about, my daughter's friend. Carla extended her hand, and Lily shook it. I've heard a lot about you, Carla said. Raymond tells me you're doing really well. I'm trying, Lily said honestly. Some days are harder than others. That's normal, Carla said. It took me years to really heal from what I went through. But I did heal, and I built a life I love. I'm a social worker now, actually. I work with an organization that helps abuse survivors, partly because of what Raymond did for me. She smiled at the old biker, affection clear in her expression. He showed me that there are good people in the world, people who help without expecting anything back. I wanted to become one of those people. As the evening went on, Lily watched the Steel Wolves interact with the community. Families came through, many with their own stories of how the club had helped them. A single mother whose car the club had repaired for free when she couldn't afford it. A teenager who'd been mentored after getting in trouble with drugs. An elderly couple whose home had been damaged in a storm, and the club had spent a weekend fixing it. These men and women, with their leather and tattoos and intimidating appearances, were some of the most caring people Lily had ever met. They lived by a code: protect the weak, stand up to bullies, take care of your community. And they meant it. Later that night, as people began to leave, Lily found Marcus by the refreshment table. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Course," Marcus replied, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "That day in the hospital, when you first saw me, why did you care? You could have just walked past, minded your own business." Marcus set down his coffee and looked at her seriously. "Years ago, I was a different person. Angrier, more selfish. Got into fights, made bad choices. Then one night, I saw a woman being harassed outside a bar. 3 drunk guys wouldn't leave her alone." He shook his head at the memory. "Old me might have walked past. But that night, something made me step in. Turned out that woman was Raymond's wife, and one of those drunk guys had a knife. Things got ugly, but we got her safe. Raymond invited me to a club meeting after that. Said they could use someone who wasn't afraid to stand up when it mattered. Turned my whole life around. Gave me purpose, brothers, a code to live by." Marcus met Lily's eyes. "So when I saw you in that hospital, scared and hurt, I saw a chance to be for you what Raymond was for me. Someone who gives a damn. Someone who does the right thing even when it's not their problem." Lily felt her throat tighten with emotion. "Thank you," she managed to say. "For caring. For calling your brothers. For saving my life." "You saved your own life," Marcus said gently. "You survived. You stayed strong enough to make it to that moment. We just made sure you didn't have to fight alone anymore." As Lily helped clean up after the event, she thought about the strange turn her life had taken. She'd gone from living in constant fear to being surrounded by some of the most protective people she'd ever met. She discovered that family wasn't always about blood. Sometimes it was about people who chose to stand beside you when the world got dark. 6 months after that night in the hospital, Lily stood in a courtroom as Derek was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Her mother sat in the back row, clean from the anxiety medications she'd been abusing, working to rebuild some kind of relationship with her daughter. It was slow going, but Lily was trying to forgive, even if forgetting was impossible. Raymond and Marcus sat with the Hendersons, there to support Lily through the difficult day. As the judge read the sentence, Lily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Justice wasn't perfect, and 5 years didn't undo the damage Derek had caused. But it was something. It was acknowledgement that what happened to her mattered, that she mattered. Outside the courthouse, a group of Steel Wolves waited on their motorcycles, not to intimidate, but to celebrate. They'd organized a ride to the beach, a tradition they had for marking important moments. Lily had been invited to ride with Marcus, her first time on a motorcycle. As they geared up, Raymond pulled her aside. "I'm proud of you," he said. "Not just for today, but for every day you've chosen to keep going, to heal, to trust again." "I couldn't have done it without all of you," Lily said. "Yes, you could have," Raymond corrected gently. "But thank God you didn't have to." The ride to the beach was exhilarating. Wind rushing past, the rumble of engines, the feeling of freedom that came from motion and speed. When they arrived and parked along the boardwalk, Lily stood looking out at the ocean, the waves rolling endlessly toward shore. Marcus came to stand beside her. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "I'm thinking about how different my life is now," Lily said. "How 6 months ago, I didn't think I had a future worth living for. And now I have plans, dreams, people who care about me." She turned to look at the group of bikers behind them, laughing and talking, treating her like she was one of their own. "I'm thinking about how the people I was taught to fear became the people who saved me." "There's a lesson in that," Marcus said, "about not judging books by their covers, about how the most unexpected people can become heroes." Lily nodded, then smiled. "I want to help others," she announced suddenly. "Like Carla does. I want to work with kids who are going through what I went through. Show them they can survive it, that there's life after the nightmare." "You'll be good at it," Marcus said with certainty. "Because you've been there. You know what it's like, and that kind of understanding can't be taught in any school." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in oranges and purples, the Steel Wolves built a bonfire on the beach. Someone brought a guitar, and they sang old rock songs, their rough voices carrying across the sand. Lily sat surrounded by leather and tattoos, by people who'd shown her that courage comes in many forms. She thought about that night in the hospital, about how scared she'd been, about how one man's decision to not look away had changed everything. She thought about how 97 bikers, some who'd been there that night, others who joined the cause afterward, had formed a wall between her and the person who'd hurt her, not with violence, but with presence, with the simple, powerful statement, "We see you, we believe you, we will protect you." That was the true strength of the Steel Wolves, Lily realized. Not their motorcycles or their tough appearances, but their willingness to stand up when it mattered, to be the kind of people who ran toward trouble instead of away from it, who used their strength to shield the vulnerable instead of exploit them. Years later, Lily would ride her own motorcycle, wearing her own leather jacket. She'd become a counselor specializing in abuse survivors, working alongside Carla and the organization the Steel Wolves supported. She'd speak at schools and community centers, telling her story to rooms full of people who needed to hear it. And she'd always remember that night in the hospital, the moment everything changed, the moment a stranger saw her fear and decided to do something about it, the moment 97 bikers proved that sometimes the most unlikely heroes are the ones who show up when everyone else looks away. Because that's what real brotherhood means. That's what family means. Not blood or obligation, but choice. The choice to stand beside someone when they can't stand alone. The choice to be the kind of person who makes the world a little bit safer, a little bit kinder, one act of courage at a time. As Lily sat by the bonfire, listening to the waves and the laughter of her chosen family, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not just for herself, but for every scared kid out there, every person living in fear, every soul who needed to know that somewhere in the darkness, there were lights still shining, there were people still fighting, there were Steel Wolves still riding, still protecting, still refusing to look away. And that made all the difference.